All right, we can go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone. This is the April 28th meeting of the Master Plan Oversight Committee. So the meeting is now open. We have myself, Connor O'Shea, we have George Kingston, Gordon Smith is here, Joe Williams, Marilyn Richards. That's it for attendance there. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from our last meeting. The one note that I see is that our agenda does say that it's from March 24th, but the minutes themselves say March 23rd, but it should be
Actually,
March 23rd.
23rd.
It should be the 24th Wednesday.
Okay. All right.
Did anyone have a chance to review those?
I'm sorry, I've been gone all day and I just found the email when I turned on the computer, so I have not looked at them.
No worries. If everyone else hasn't either, we can always take that up at our next meeting. Anyone else? Do we want to just
quickly review them now, or did you want to delay the acceptance?
Whatever the committee's pleasure is. I'm fine delaying it if we want, or if you want to take a couple minutes to review them, we can do that as well.
I think you have most people starting to review them.
If we want to just take a minute or two to skim through them, that's fine with me.
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I think I have to abstain from the vote.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, Joe. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written. It's George.
Thank you, George. George has made the motion. Does anyone have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. And is there any further discussion on the minutes? All right, hearing none, then we'll take a roll call vote since the meeting's over Zoom. So George?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
And Joe will abstain. Marilyn?
Yes.
And myself, yes. All right, so that carries. And so then the next item on our agenda is comments on the draft Resilient Master Plan content that was sent out a little while back. So I don't know if you wanted to lead us off on that one, Ken.
Yeah, I think
I just had a question. Sorry to interrupt Ken and Connor, but we had not put this on the agenda, but I'm wondering if people are willing to do a quick icebreaker activity, even though it's not on the agenda. Is that okay if we do that, or?
It actually is on the agenda.
Oh yeah, it is under number 1 there.
Oh, okay.
I just glossed past the word icebreaker. I just saw
Oh, okay.
welcome. And yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have my copy in front of me. So great. Then the icebreaker, and again, the icebreaker obviously is just to get us all talking before you have to listen to us for a minute of time. But so because we're moving toward the end of this process, and again, I want to congratulate you all for getting to the end of April. We only have May and June left for this work. And so it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing to develop a master plan for a community in 8 months. So we're getting close to that. And so just want to congratulate you and thank you for all the hard work. But so for the icebreaker, we wanted to just take a minute, 30 seconds, and think about implementation. And what does the word implementation mean to you, and how are you feeling about it right now? So I'll let that sink in. Think about implementation, what it means, how you're feeling about it. And I'm going to call on Stephanie to let everybody else have more time. Bethany, could you start us off?
Sure. I think implementation is really exciting to me. It's the part where you actually get to do something with all these great ideas. It's also a little nerve-wracking because it's a lot more work than just coming up with the ideas. So it's a little bit of excitement and nerves at the same time.
Great, thank you. Marilyn?
I would pick up, in addition to what Bethany said, and prioritize where you want to start. You can't obviously do it all at once. And to implement, you have to create standards, bylaws, perhaps to carry it forward. And so that's what I see.
Thank you. George?
Well, implementation is always the hardest part because you're actually getting into the details of not just concepts and goals, but actually what needs to be done. And the hardest part about implementation is really getting consensus from the people who need to approve this, namely town council and planning board. Translating these goals into concrete bylaws and actions is going to be a challenge that will take us until the next master plan, probably.
Joe?
Hey, so for me, implementation, especially with, I can't not help but think about the master plan. So for implementation, for me, it's excitement and, just figuring out where do we start, right? What do we do next, and how do we move forward with, something that we spend so much time on, designing and getting feedback and everything else like that. So definitely more excitement, I probably think, than anything else.
Gordon?
So just building on what everyone else has said, certainly when you get to implementation, especially with something that has so much interest and work in it, it's active, it's exciting, but to the points that I think Marilyn and George were making, obviously needs to be coordinated and overseen. And so sometimes that can be the more challenging part. Who's overseeing the different action steps and making sure that certain departments and/or department heads might need to be alerted, hey, this is something that's going to fall under your department's responsibility.
Thanks. And Connor, to wrap it up.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, echoing most of those same sentiments, I think it really just gets into the action part of it. But before you can even take action, then I think there's even more detailed planning that's necessary first, because a lot of the master plan is just kind of some broad goals and vision and where people want to go. But before you can even actually take a step in the right direction and do something, you've actually got to figure out, well, what specifically about that are we trying to do now?
Thank you all very much for doing that. Back to Ken.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I think that's very insightful on what everyone has brought with regards to their answers to Catherine's initial question. And, I'm hoping that as we get to this next step, which is the implementation workshop, that some of those ideas will be, at least as Marilyn had put it, prioritized, understanding priorities. We have some tools that will be putting out there in the next couple of days before the May 20th implementation workshop. So it'll be important, I think, to navigate these next steps. But with regards to the draft content of the plan, I think I have a long list of people here. Andrew Smith provided some comments, Bethany, Connor, Don Mackey, George, Layla, Marilyn, Jean Quaglietti. Thanks to those that have submitted comments. I know that Russ Denver also submitted some comments, and another town councilor that I can't remember. Bethany, you probably know. So those comments have been received. It's one of those, one of the ideas behind receiving those comments are specific to the content of this draft. So we purposefully did not label this the the master plan draft. The content from each of those sections will be placed within this final plan. The idea for this plan is to create themes. And with those themes, which will come from the recommended goals and strategies from each of the elements that have been, written, and will be fine-tuned over these next couple of weeks as we incorporate your comments into them, I think will help navigate the communication of this plan out to the community. With that said, I know that for the purposes of just generalizing is there any comment from this committee, maybe from Gordon or Joe, who, that I don't have any comments from, but is there any general comments with regards to some of the content that has been produced? Obviously, it's important to look at the issues and opportunities, but for this next process, we're going to be moving to implementation and identifying the goal statements and the strategies that have been identified. So I don't know if Gordon, Joe, or any of the other committee members want to chime in with regards to the particular process that you've, in reviewing this document. Marilyn?
Oops, sorry.
Did someone want to go first? Okay. I don't know if this is suitable, but when I went through the draft, and I even commented on my comments that there was significant amount of data, and I think it's all important, and you take from that data to basically come up with a plan. The final product, will it have this much data in it, or will we deal with more of the goals and objectives? Because I know human nature, and I know people out there are not going to want to sit through and read pages and pages and pages of data. I might, but they might not. And so I just want to make sure that we create a document that's user friendly. And so maybe that's the piece that's missing for me.
Yeah, that was one of the same kind of feedback points that I had. Was I think the document so far overall was quite long and repetitive. I don't think anyone's actually going to read 123 pages or something in the community.
So,
And I'm sorry, Marilyn, go ahead.
no, I said, what's the answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was wondering, do you take some, because I had read through and I was looking at, you have all the notes from the focus groups and so forth, and all valid points. Do you take some of that and you put it into appendices and then cite the appendices as you write sort of your goals and your narrative? Is that how, I don't know how the drafting works.
So I think the approach, and both Marilyn and Connor bring up a great point. And I think the general tradition of master plans from other communities in the Commonwealth it's a lot of writing, right? And a lot of numbers and graphs. It's not necessarily the most interesting piece of thing to read. And you have to dig in to get to the priorities and the goals for the community. And so, yes, Gordon, your point regarding some of these data points and repetitive kind of setting the context for each of these sections will end up in the appendices in some form or format. I think too, we, as the later in the agenda suggests, that we're going to be delivering these other tools, of which the story map will play an important part. That's an interactive website that will help the town both with this implementation work that we're trying to understand, as well as what will be a final product eventually. But Connor, in his comments, and not everyone sees everyone else's comments, so there were a lot of similar comments from many of the people that have submitted comments. Some were very fine-tuned about certain sections, which I appreciate, from the department heads that have submitted those. But yes, I think that to set up the actual physical plan, it will be maybe a page or two on demographics, maybe a page or two on what the history of the community is. But as Marilyn put it, if you want to talk about these various issues and opportunities that have been understood in the community and identified, you're not going to want to go through the data to see how you arrive there. It's important, but you're going to want to see what you've identified and the ways to achieve that and to meet those goals. And so that's what the implementation workshop will hopefully accomplish. I don't know, Catherine, if there was anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in just exactly what you're all saying. That's exactly what we were going to talk about with the story map, that basically what I remember from elementary school learning about, a research paper versus a newsletter, a news article. So, in the news article, you want the important information first, whereas your research paper, you build to your point. So what you've seen is kind of like the research paper stuff. And now we're going to turn it into the news article. So we're going to put all the key stuff up front, all the big ideas, all the things, the compelling points and reasons for taking action, and then put all the details in the appendix as Gordon suggested. So I think Ken is going to show us some examples of story maps as part of this agenda, and you'll get a sense to see of how it will be much more user-friendly. It's a web-based product, so it'll be on the city's websites, but it can have print pieces related to it for handouts to share with people who are less comfortable with the internet. But as a web-based product, it's much easier to update, and I think it'll address your concerns.
I just like to say that I like having all the data, not necessarily in the bulk of the report, but I'd hate to lose any of that data, particularly going forward when we're trying to justify the goals or actions. That's what's going to back it up. I'd also like to ask when we're likely to see a final draft, not a final product, but a final draft, because as Ken knows, I went through this and I gave him 4 or 5 pages of comments, everything from typos to substantial stuff. And it took a while to do that. I'd hate to have this final draft dumped on us with like 1 week to go, something like that, because it deserves careful editing.
Well, we will make sure to walk back from the deadline so that you have at least is 2 weeks reasonable, or 3 weeks? What would be a reasonable amount of time for you to review whatever the final draft is?
I would like 3 weeks, because if I have comments, that gives you time to look at them and decide whether or not you want to act on them.
Great.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. And because obviously we're working back from the deadline and knowing what we need to deliver, it just means time, that we're crunching time. And obviously I think some of the additional items that we will be learning from the implementation workshop, which is held at late May, also will play into that role, right? So, understanding goal statements, the goal statements that have been made, the initial goal statements, the proposed goal statements, as well as the strategies that have been identified, those may be fine-tuned as well during the implementation workshop, where if the survey, which we'll talk about, and the story map, which will have an interactive component, show that a certain strategy should not be receiving, a high priority or not listed on there at all, that'll tell the committee and tell the people working on the draft that should be removed or refined in a certain way to address some of those issues. So that kind of has been, understanding the role that the implementation workshop and all of our additional interactive tools that we'll be, putting out there in the next couple of days, how that will play also into this final-ish draft before it goes into a planned document, which will look totally different because it will have the nice graphics and will have the nice, eye-catching text and formatting.
So a question for you, Ken, what's that final date that you guys are targeting then that will walk that 3 or so weeks back from.
So I think if we're to look at the next committee meeting as not necessarily, well, I'm going to be starting to work with our graphic designer to put together a format for the plan, especially as we're coming up with the themes that we're identifying based on some of the initial goal statements and strategies. But I would say that between now and the final-ish meeting of May, or not the final meeting, but the meeting in May is when we'll be cranking out these next iterations based on the comments received by the committee. And who knows, there may be others that I don't know about but may end up going to Bethany, and Bethany will forward them to me. But I think to be sure is that I do not want to take George's 4 to 5 pages of notes and, not address them, because he's obviously brought up important parts, as have you and others on this, in the committee and throughout the community. So I think if we're looking at the end of May to at least have what may be the our probably end where we would incorporate the comments and also address the implementation workshop, that is probably going to be our goal. And then between that, any fine tuning of the content will be before the June meeting. So maybe looking at mid-June or the 3rd week of June, and then address whatever we need to on the final meeting in June. And then that may just require some engagement with Bethany to close out the grant, as well as, discussing with the committee the next steps, if there are any. But I think the goal is to have all of the content based on the changes that have been made by the committee, the changes that have been suggested by the committee, at least addressing them, or, coming up to George and saying, hey, I'm going to take this into consideration, but here's a thought, or, talking to individuals and reaching them out to them. And then utilizing that for something the committee to review in May, at the May meeting.
But I don't think we're going, the implementation workshop is on May 20th. So, and then the May meeting is a week after that on the 26th. So I think by the 26th, we'll be affirming everything that we heard. We'll be giving to you everything we heard at the implementation workshop and getting you to affirm it. And then we will, get it all done and get it to you by that first week in June. Because if we want to go back for 3 weeks to give you 3 weeks to give us comments, we'll have to get it to you, by, like May 28th or June 1st. And the deliverable that we promised to the state is a locally adopted master plan. So as George said, the planning board is the entity that will vote to locally adopt it. So it'll be, the planning board will have to, when is the meeting of the planning board in June, George, the last meeting?
Bethany can probably answer that quicker than I can.
But the 4th Tuesday?
It'd be the fourth Tuesday, yeah.
Probably the 22nd then.
Yeah, so we'll have to have it done to give for the planning board to vote on it that day. So yeah, I guess Ken is right. We really have to get it to you by the 20. We have to, discuss it at the 26th and then get it to you by that Friday, the 28th.
Marilyn?
Just a quick question. Catherine, you mentioned the planning board adopting it. Earlier, George said the planning board and the town council. The draft document referenced both at different points. And it doesn't matter. Is it just the planning board that adopts the master plan, or does the council get their fingers in it?
I believe it's just the planning board. What I was referring to was implementation is
Well,
going
that's
to require getting, obviously,
okay. I didn't understand it that way,
Yeah.
so I'm glad it's been clarified.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it would be great if the town council wanted to adopt it as well. That's totally fine. But the Mass General Law talks about the planning board adopting a master plan.
Yeah, I think to clarify on that point, Marilyn, it was, in some of the communities, the city council or town council would, after the planning board formally approved it, it would go to town council, and that would kind of be like a celebration of the community, adopting it. But per MGL, the planning board would be the adopter.
I mean, just looking at the time crunch that we have, I didn't want to get caught in the weeds of too many people digesting the same information. So, thank you.
Good question. Thanks for asking it.
So it is crunch time based on that. And so understanding that we obviously at this meeting have learned have received comments, and a lot of them. I know that I will be starting to picking at the 4 sections that I wrote, as well as the other staff that are on this call. And I think between then and there, I think also we can still reach out to committee members or people that have written comments and maybe run drafts by them, or just to kind of not have to wait till the last minute, or wait until the May meeting, just because of the very condensed time. Obviously, at that meeting too is when we have to address the implementation workshop and how the results of either the survey or the survey is going to be very fast. It's going to be a 2.5-3 week survey. How the results of the survey, as well as the implementation workshop, how that feeds into identifying the priorities of the goal statements and the recommendations. So yes, it's going to be a time crunch, and I think that we have staff that will reach out to the appropriate people based on the draft comments that we have received. But I don't know if anyone has any other thought regarding that very condensed timeline.
I personally, Ken, would be happy to review sections as they're completed,
Okay.
instead of waiting for the whole package. It would be easier on me and probably easier on you to give you feedback faster.
Great.
I don't know if anybody else wants to do that, but personally, I'd be very happy to do it as the sections get completed, just because, you know me, I do typos and things, and it takes a while.
No, I think that's a good idea too, because then it would be smaller chunks for us to read through it and send stuff back instead of like one massive document again.
And maybe it's worthwhile because most of the comments have been on the actual content, not necessarily the recommendations that have been produced. I know that there've been some clarifications with regards to possible agencies that would be assisting in the process of implementation, but that's related to the implementation section. But there are comments with regards to the content. It's the economic development section where there were lots of questions about businesses and just clarifying those things, and among some of the other sections. So it now is relying on the staff to produce the changes that have been brought up in the draft comments. But yeah, I think what probably would be helpful is to, as soon as each section is finished based on the comments that have been received, then we'll just send those to you for review. I know that more than likely, because I've written 4 of them, I'll be able to turn those around and give them to the committee to review one more time to, assess further. But again, we're gonna also rely on PVPC staff for the other sections as those are completed.
And we potentially could also, if we needed to, at the beginning of June, I mean, we still have the 3 weeks in there. If we needed another meeting to do one last recap to get it all done, we could always schedule another meeting.
Yeah, I think that's doable. So yeah, I mean, this agenda item was really to, summarize most of the comments that have been received, I think, and they have been open to the staff to review based on where they live in our network. But I've gotten to see all of them, and there are a lot of both ideas on how to present the data and the information, as well as some very important content revisions that have to be made. But I think that knowing that the final plan and what that final plan looks like, once we figure out all the changes within the content, will be easier to navigate as we put it in the plan. Any other comments about the draft? I guess I invite you to if Bethany, if you know of any like last minute changes that may be coming from other staff. I know that Bruce was supposed to join the call today.
Yeah, he's going on vacation starting, I think tomorrow. So I think he's trying to wrap up some projects. He just wanted to make sure that the maintenance of some of our buildings are included, because those will need to be addressed within the next 10 or 20 years.
Okay. So I could foresee that being in the public facilities section, as well as maybe Catherine's section on the sustainability. But I guess we can, if he doesn't get on this call, we can address that, and maybe, I don't know, I'll send a quick email to him before or at the end of this meeting to say if there are very significant things that need to be added to the draft.
One thought on that, Ken.
Yeah.
I don't know if it maybe is more of an implementation side of things, but I wonder with something like the building maintenance from Bruce's perspective, if a lot of those items are potentially on the town's like 10-year capital project list or something. I wonder if we look at both that list along with the goals here that we have in the master plan and see how much of them cross over and align.
That's what I was
Or if
just
there's
going
things
to
that we
say.
completely missed.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to just cross-reference, because there's a lot that will line up, I think, or be a little bit more fine-tuned about what some of the recommendations will be geared around.
Yeah, and I think because, the recommendation statements may be too broad or maybe too specific, understanding that you do have your capital projects and you have your process by identifying how you're going to fund the capital project you've identified, doing some sort of reference to that, and as you mentioned, Bethany and Connor, and maybe having Bruce review that specific area, because obviously DPW has a major role in a lot of the maintenance questions and maintenance issues.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to necessarily like relist everything from like the capital plan in here. It's just more to make sure we didn't miss a category of important things.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so with regards to the implementation workshop, that's the next agenda item. We actually are working on the survey at the moment, and the goal is, and I'm just going to quickly share, not necessarily the survey instrument. Let's see. But what we've been using as a tool to Let me open this. So we've been using this. I'm going to zoom in. As at the end of each element, we've identified these goals, and then we've identified strategies. And then, you know, what I hid here are the matrix items that will eventually be listed in the appendices. But what we're going to be trying to do with the implementation workshop is identify this, what we've identified as priority and time frame. And we're still navigating the draft, but the goal will be to utilize and present goal statements for each of the elements, and then list the strategies, and then come up with a low, medium, or high priority. Also, doesn't need to be a priority, and then this shouldn't even be on the list as an option. And I think from that, we can glean how at the next meeting, how that is presented and what that looks like. But that's also including information. So that's particularly the survey and how it'll be presented to the community. The goal is to get that out by Friday, if not Monday. From that, we will be asking and you know, providing links and posters as much as we can do, working with Bethany's office to get the word out. We have a press release, and more than likely this will be closing. What's the date? Maybe the 19th. I don't know. I haven't. Our other consultants are working on that. But the goal is to, at the meeting, also, you know, also present the data that has been collected through the survey, as well as the story map, which will also play a role in kind of this as well. So that's the idea regarding the survey. I don't know, Catherine, if you wanted to add anything to the discussion about the survey.
Just to say that, you know, there's the public participation, there's the committee, you all, and there's the department, you know, there's the staff that are the lead implementers. And so we plan, you know, everybody can do the survey, all of you can do the survey. So we'll have the survey, you know, survey says, but we will also, you know, at the meeting after the 20th, on the 28th, we'll be focused on you all doing the final, you know, kind of prioritization. So we'll be working with Bethany to make sure that the staff have had a chance to weigh in. And so, as Ken said, it's not necessarily that, you know, because something, you know, the survey said this was the top priority, we're not going to necessarily put that over your input and the input of the staff who have to do implementation. But that's, you know, it's still important to see what the public says, but it's still up to you all to determine what the final priorities are.
Potentially
so
two.
go ahead.
I was just going to say I have potentially two questions on the survey. Hopefully I didn't miss one in the 2 seconds I had to step away. How long is the survey going to run for?
It will be to help inform the community meeting. So it will probably be open 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And this is specifically for implementation. So it's a presentation of the draft goal statements and the strategies. And it will be online. I guess, you know, if there needs to be logistics regarding paper, obviously we don't, you know, it's hard to navigate those logistics, but maybe that's what we need to talk about. We can do that, but it will be posted on SurveyMonkey, and we'll share the links widely on the project website, as well as information that we'll share with Bethany that can be, you know, sent throughout town through social media and other means. I
Yeah,
guess,
that-
yeah,
I was just gonna say that'll be good because we can also get that link posted on all the different Facebook groups for the town, because that might get some additional responses
yeah.
as well.
And I think that will be the goal, is to utilize that process to help inform the prioritization of some of these initial recommendations that we
Can
presented.
we get a short clip advertising this on LCAT?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I can quickly put something together as far as maybe a link. I don't know if Bethany, if there's a process by which to do that. But I think we can put on an LCAT for maybe a 10-15 second, like a voiceover PSA with the link to the survey and closes whenever.
Yep,
Is that
that
okay?
should be doable. We'll just work with Don Mackey on that.
Okay, very good. That's something that I've been navigating during the pandemic are these PSAs, because many communities are looking at how to incorporate video and videography to advertise certain things. So I think we can put that together pretty quickly. Okay. Bethany, do you think that there's going to be a need for paper surveys, or are we going to just try to push everyone to online?
I'll probably try to have a couple paper ones available. There's always a few people who call and want to participate, but don't have online access. So
Yeah, I think too, Alexis, myself, and you are listed as contacts for the survey. So I'm also presuming that if someone hears about it and are like, I can't get online, I could probably, walk through the survey with them, or you or Alexis. So that's another option too. But okay. So the next item is the story map. And so I'm going to just quickly share a screen of, this is obviously not East Longmeadow, but so the city of Northampton put together the story map for some work that they're doing on Main Street, or a planning process they're doing for Main Street. And they're utilizing this as something which takes out the big points, the big picture, and provides a logical kind of scroll through this website. And I imagine that with a story map that we're going to try to present, which will have similar exercises with regards to the implementation work, where you have these areas where you can interact and type, right? But I'm currently creating the content for what the introduction is. Like Marilyn said, you want to create the context by which you are suggesting these goals and priorities. And so providing, these very neat pictures, historical photos, text that scrolls up, some maps, and other types of graphics with interactive links to look at things will be something that will be a tool for both the implementation workshop as well as the final product. So in addition to the plan, you'll also have a plan website that will look similar to this and have a feel of taking the big picture and putting it into something more friendly to the user. But a presentation of ideas like this, where you have each of the goal statements, you have the recommendations, and it literally is as you scroll down and you see these various graphical, both maps and ideas presented that are fun, and some graphs of data that you've seen, and I think it was the third meeting. that will be helpful to create the context for housing or open space or any of the other sections. But the goal is to utilize the story map as both an interactive tool for engagement as well as for a final product. And so that is the story map. I don't know, Catherine, if you wanted to add anything with regards to the story map, but I think I covered it.
Yeah, you covered it.
Okay.
There's other versions of it that we could share with you if you wanted to see. We could put some on the website, but our staff made one to celebrate our accomplishments. I know George has seen it from the end of last year, or not from last year at the beginning of this year. But so we could share those if you'd like to see other types of story maps. But yeah, I think you covered it. Thanks.
Yeah, so it's supposed to draw you in with the great graphics, the photos. We've each of the content specialists put together a listing of photos that we were going to take based on some of the concepts and some of the discussions that we've learned throughout, our time in East Longmeadow. So obviously we're going to have some pictures of the Rotary, have some overhead pictures, some drone footage that our graphics team is putting together. They were in the other community today that we're working on the same master plan, working in that community today, taking footage of various areas that we've identified. And so I imagine that those are the types of photos you'll be seeing in the story map, as well as the plan that will help create a nice graphic tool for the town. But yeah, that's the goal of the story map, is to be used both for the implementation workshop and as a final product for the master plan. Okay, and then the next item is the workshop itself. And so we have that scheduled for Thursday, May 20th from 6 to 8. We will be in the next, because we're obviously not going to be meeting until after the workshop. So I think logistically we'll be working with Bethany to get the word out. We'll have some posters. Again, maybe it's worthwhile to put a PSA together for the implementation workshop and ways to engage during that process. Similar to what happened for the visioning session, it'll be kind of the same thing with different interactive activities. And so that'll be the goal of the implementation workshop on the 20th, to also inform the priorities of the goals and the strategies that have been identified. Any questions about the workshop and some of the implementation side of the master plan, some of those concepts?
Yeah, how do we think the format of the implementation workshop is going to be? Is it going to be similar to how we did the first workshop, or is it going to be different?
It'll be similar to the first workshop, where it will be facilitated by Bear Planning Group with breakout rooms, as well as some polling that will happen, a presentation of the issues and opportunities that have been identified in the draft plan. Obviously, there's going to be a small presentation component of what we've actually learned in the community and why we're having this workshop and what this workshop means to prioritize some of those issues that we've identified and identify ways to implement or achieve, fixing them or addressing them. So it is going to be both presentation / polling / breakout rooms for the exercise.
Okay.
Anyone else?
So, hey, Ken, just to clarify, so the implementation workshop is just our way of kind of weighting what's most important to members of the town. and understanding, the timeline for what we want to get done and when we want to get it done. Essentially.
Right. So that matrix that I showed you that's in the plan, which identifies a time frame and then funding and resources, which PVPC will help populate those particular sections. But it's identifying that time frame and identifying that priority. As Catherine mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily going to be, oh, we really need to work on these bylaws first, but if Marilyn or George and their experience working with bylaws and how those regulations came into place and understand the history and knowing that it failed a couple of years ago, is that something that needs to be priority at the moment? Maybe not, but that's a discussion that the committee would have, and then that would be navigated however we want to in the final plan. But it is a tool. The workshop will be a tool to understand other members of the community that may or may not have been in the visioning session to see what's been come up with, and also identify if we're on the right track in identifying those issues and how to address them. So that would be the goal.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that another thing that we have to do is to lift up themes, the major themes by which we can organize the recommended strategies for the story map. So we've already been hearing themes that you all have articulated throughout this process, but that's another thing that we're going to be listening for in the implementation workshop is what are the feelings, the themes that are being expressed by residents and all of you, of course, but that, like, we've heard a lot about maintaining the small town feel of East Longmeadow, in its proximity to Springfield, that you want to keep that identity. And we've talked about, making sure that there's opportunities for older people and younger people to interact. And so that's another thing that we're going to be looking for and listening for in the workshop is what are the kind of emotional things that will grab your residents and get interested in the master plan. I mean, obviously, I think I've been working in the region for a long time, and I've seen towns grow and change over time. And East Hampton didn't have a master plan, and we helped them do a master plan in 2008. And when you look at what East Hampton has done from 2008 to 2020, having a plan that was what, that was developed in collaboration with the city government and the residents and the main implementing bodies, the elected officials, you can see what is possible. So, we know that it's not the residents that implement a plan, but it is the residents that vote for people that, have to make these decisions. And so we want to try to get that emotional appeal so that there is, that the plan feels like something that people care about and are interested in.
I think, Catherine, to your point, and I have had this on the back of my head, it's when I think it may have been the first or second meeting where Bethany was saying how we can get the residents to understand how they play a role, big or small, to help support the ideas and the goals and the things to make the community better. So, obviously, I think that civic pride and identifying how volunteers play an important role, maybe that's a theme, how to build on that. But it's those types of things, both the emotional and the things like preserving more agricultural land or identifying that you need to preserve this because it's important to the farmers in town, or so that you're not overdeveloped or you're not paying attention to some of the environmental issues that may be brewing. But yes, so that's kind of going to be the goal with the themes, and that's the way that the plan is also going to be presented in the final document. Let's see. So the next item is the final product. I think we've kind of discussed that to a certain point where we'll have our graphic designer. I'm going to be working with them to set the color schemes and the way to make it look uniform. Identify the photos that will be used. This also brings up a good point. Photo contest. So we're doing this in another community, in the other community that we're working on the master plan, and am wondering if you'd like to do the same, where as you register for the visioning, for the implementation workshop, you'd have the opportunity to upload photos. And at the implementation workshop, we announce the winner of that, and that photo would be presented in the plan in some form, somewhere in the plan. Is that something that you think is a good idea, or overplayed? I don't know. It's a
Right, I like the idea of potentially getting additional photos from the community, because there might be some good ones out there that highlight things. I don't know that we need to turn it into a contest though and try to pick a winner.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess I agree with that to an extent. Whatever anybody feels like, would drive excitement to have people submit photos, right? So I'm sure there's plenty of great pictures out there that people might have that would be great in the final product, and how do we drive the excitement outside of a contest? I mean, I'm sure you probably could, I suppose, but what do you guys, I don't know what you guys think.
I like the idea of the photos just because it gets another element of even just as a resident, you can participate in this plan, and you can help be part of the creation of it in a more substantial way, I guess, than popping into a visioning session.
In the final draft, Ken, I'm assuming there might be a number of photos. So how many, the contest in the other community, how many photos would possibly be included in that contest?
A good question. I don't know if we've received any yet. The registration for that workshop is happening now. We have that workshop next week. Yeah, that's a good question, whether or not, maybe one or two. But I think that it's a good tool to engage people to submit their photos, especially if they're proud of one.
And what if you have people submit photos and we display them on a web page?
That's great.
And then the winners and how many we're going to include, everyone gets a display, and so that now it's public, but you could announce winners that would actually be published in the final report.
That's a great idea. And I think that we can probably do something where maybe when we work on that story map, and how, maybe we can put a separate link to photos that were collected, and have something interactive, like a slideshow. But in the actual physical document of the plan, obviously one of the photos would make it. But I think that's a great idea.
Hey, is there a way that we could have people upload photos themselves? I don't know. Do we want to go down that route? Or do we just say, send us pictures and we'll do it?
No, well, it's not the committee. It would be the people that are planning to attend the workshop. I mean, I guess if you didn't want to attend the workshop but still wanted to upload your photos, we would have a link for those folks who wanted to upload their photo. It wouldn't have to come from the committee. So it would be individuals who had access to that link that could click the link and say, we're going to put our photo in there because we want our photo in the plan, or we want our photo featured in the slideshow for the community website, something like that.
Okay.
I guess we can work on those logistics.
Hey, as far as final product, I think, I don't know where I got this from, maybe Bethany back a while back. Will it look similar to like the one that was done for the town of Winchester? Does that sound familiar?
Yes, that is
That's the
the
one.
model that we're trying to emulate, because the way that they have presented the plan is awesome photos, lots of neat drone footage,
Yep.
with nice catchy graphics and fonts and all of that fun stuff, but also plays into the ideas that Marilyn brought up earlier, which is we really want to see what the goals and the objectives are and how to achieve that. But then also, there would be a component of this is how we got to that point. But that's the goal, is to have it look like that, not like the draft that you saw.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
Just words
Yeah.
and some maps.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they did a pretty good job of like, summarizing the data and making it very easy to read, so it's not kind of overwhelming for anybody to just pick it up.
Right. Any last comments? That was our last agenda item before next steps.
I just wanted to share that kind of as a spark from the visioning session, we had a resident who helped organize an Earth Day cleanup in East Longmeadow with over, I think, 200 volunteers. It's a really big event, and it looks awesome. I was just looking at their Facebook page with all their updates, and they had prizes for best team name and the amount of
that was Aaron, Bethany?
Yeah.
Aaron, yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. It was a great day. If you drive around town, you just saw people everywhere. And there's a lot. That would be some great pictures to add.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was really cool that came out of the visioning session, and gives me a lot of hope for what's next and what the community can accomplish.
Definitely.
That would be a great little story to maybe feature. We could try to figure out how to put that in the plan. That's cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Bethany, this is probably a question for you with regards to some additional engagement that we're still trying to do, right, with the school. I haven't yet talked to the consultant with regards to that, but I know that she may have scheduled something with you. That's something that is still happening, right, with the high school students?
Yes, and I think they're actually having a conversation about logistics tomorrow or Friday with Mark, who's the career counselor director at the high school.
Mark Macarini is the he's the career center counselor and director.
Right.
So he coordinates all community service for the high school students.
Yeah, so that's going to be an important engagement that we're also trying to shoehorn into this process, but we've heard from, I guess, to an extent, youth from the families of those students in the school system during our various engagement opportunities, but an engagement session specifically with that may produce some neat ideas.
And I'm not sure what the input will look like. I think, if I remember correctly, Mark said they would do surveys during their study hall and have a short discussion if they can during that time, and then submit those survey results.
That's great. Yeah.
I think, Bethany, it might be the environmental club that's trying to take the lead on that. Am I right on that? Did I see that? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And Margaret, I believe, is still the president of the club, and she was also involved with the Conservation Commission last year. So she's, I guess, more in tune than your average youth with town government and how that looks.
Was she on the Conservation Commission, or
she wasn't on it, but she would come to the meetings and
That's
listen.
awesome. That's great. Okay. Anyone else? Anything else? Catherine, last words. Okay, so we definitely will be in touch. Obviously, we are going to be navigating, sending you a survey link to the survey that we hope will be shared throughout the community. And we'll do our part to do the same. I will create those PSAs once those survey links are live. And then also be in touch regarding the implementation workshop and getting the poster and that also out there. Again, that's scheduled for May 20th. And then we will have our meeting after that to debrief along with identify those strategies and see how we incorporate them into the final plan. But those are kind of the next steps, and it's 2 months away and we're crunching time. But we are excited to continue to work with the community and yeah, look forward to the implementation workshop. And yeah, if there's nothing else, I guess, Connor, it's up to you to close the meeting.
All right, sounds good. So then we'll hopefully see you all on May 20th and then following that, May 26th. So then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. So the motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. And so I'm a yes. George,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Marilyn. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
All right, thank
Hi,
you.
everybody.
Very good.
Good evening.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.